The countdown didn't begin with a press conference or a polished announcement. It began quietly, almost deliberately understated, exactly 48 hours before the global premiere of Cranium. One post. No caption. No explanation. Just a short, unsettling teaser released simultaneously on Freen and Becky's accounts. Fans noticed immediately. The teaser was only a few seconds long, but it carried weight. Dim lighting. A slow pan across a sterile forensic room. The sound of a heartbeat layered beneath silence. Then two voices, Freen's calm and steady, Becky's low and controlled, speaking a single line each. Not dialogue from the series. Not promotion. Something else entirely. Some truths don't want to be found. And some can't stay buried. The screen cut to black. No logo. No release reminder. No hashtags. Within minutes, the internet was on fire. What shocked fans wasn't just the content of the teaser, but the timing. With only 48 hours left before the January 12th premiere, most productions would be pushing trailers, interviews, and hype. Instead, Freen and Becky chose mystery, silence, restraint. And that choice changed everything. Theories flooded timelines. Some believed the teaser hinted at a final twist in Cranium that hadn't been revealed to press or critics. Others argued it wasn't about the show at all, that it was a message to fans, a closing of one chapter and the beginning of another. After all, this wasn't just another drama for Freen and Becky. This was their return, their reinvention, their first project after stepping fully into independence. As fans replayed the teaser frame by frame, details began to surface. The forensic room wasn't identical to any scene shown in trailers. The lighting was colder. The angles unfamiliar. The heartbeat sound wasn't part of the official soundtrack. And the voices, measured, intimate, deliberate, felt personal in a way scripted lines rarely do. Then came their final message. Not a video. Not a live stream. Just a short written note posted hours later. Thank you for walking with us to this moment. What happens next belongs to the story. That was it. No emojis. No countdown clock. No call to action. And somehow, that simplicity hit harder than any marketing campaign could. Longtime fans understood the significance immediately. Freen and Becky had spent years navigating expectations, projections, and pressure. Every smile analyzed. Every interaction scrutinized. Cranium wasn't just a premiere. It was a statement. About growth. About control. About choosing how and when to speak. Industry insiders began weighing in. Some called it the boldest pre-release move of 2026 so far. Others said it was risky to go quiet so close to premiere day. But fans weren't worried. They were energized. The teaser didn't create doubt, it created trust. Because it felt intentional. As the final 48 hours ticked down, something shifted in the fandom. The excitement wasn't frantic anymore. It was focused, anticipatory. Almost reverent. People stopped asking what Cranium would be about and started asking how it would feel. And perhaps that was the point. Freen and Becky didn't just drop a teaser. They reset the tone. They reminded everyone that Cranium wasn't meant to be consumed casually. It was meant to be experienced. Slowly, carefully, together. As January 12th approached, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a premiere. It was a crossing point. And whatever waited on the other side, Freen and Becky were ready to face it, without explaining a thing. As the final hours crept closer, the silence around Cranium grew louder than any promotional campaign ever could. There were no last-minute interviews flooding the timeline, no red carpet sneak peeks, no behind-the-scenes photos to soften what was coming. Instead, there was restraint, and fans began to understand that this was intentional. Behind the scenes, insiders hinted that Freen and Becky had personally approved every decision leading up to this moment. From the teaser's stripped-down editing to the wording of that final message, nothing was accidental. It wasn't about building hype in the traditional sense. It was about control, about ownership, about standing in front of the story rather than hiding behind it. Fans who had followed Freen and Becky from the beginning felt it deeply. This wasn't the energy of two actresses chasing validation. This was the calm confidence of artists who knew exactly what they were delivering. Years of pressure, speculation, and expectation had sharpened them. Cranium was no longer just a project, it was proof. As midnight approached in different time zones, watch parties quietly formed. Some fans stayed awake, refreshing streaming pages. Others chose to wait until morning, wanting to experience the series without exhaustion, without distraction. Across social media, one phrase began to repeat again and again. Trust them. That trust didn't come from marketing. It came from history. When the clock finally struck premiere time, reactions didn't explode immediately. There was a pause, a strange, collective intake of breath. Then came the first responses, short, stunned sentences. People didn't know how to summarize what they had just seen. Not because it was confusing, but because it was heavy. Cranium didn't rush its audience. It didn't explain itself. It unfolded slowly, deliberately, demanding attention rather than background viewing. And at the center of it all were Freen and Becky, transformed, not just in appearance, but in presence. Viewers noticed it right away. Freen's performance was controlled, almost unnervingly calm, the kind of quiet intensity that made every pause feel dangerous. Becky, on the other hand, carried a sharp emotional edge, vulnerability wrapped in restraint, eyes saying more than dialogue ever could. Together, they didn't compete for the spotlight. They shared it, passing tension back and forth like a living thing. By the time the first episode ended, social media finally erupted, but not in chaos. In analysis, people discussed symbolism, camera angles, silence, the weight of unsaid words, and suddenly that 48-hour teaser made sense. The heartbeat, the darkness, the warning. Some truths don't want to be found. Cranium wasn't just a thriller. It was a mirror. As the hours passed, reviews began to roll in. Critics praised the maturity of the storytelling. Fans defended the slower pace against those who expected something lighter. And through it all, Freen and Becky remained quiet. No victory laps. No celebratory posts. Just one shared image hours later, a still from the series, blurred and shadowed, with a single line beneath it. It's yours now. That was when it truly hit. This wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning of a new phase, one where Freen and Becky weren't defined by rumors, pairings, or expectations, but by the work they chose to put into the world. Cranium didn't scream for attention. It earned it. And as fans pressed play on the next episode, one thing became undeniable. Whatever comes after this, nothing about Freen and Becky will ever be small again. By the second day after the premiere, the conversation around Cranium had shifted from excitement to obsession. What began as quiet admiration turned into full-scale dissection. Fans weren't just watching the series anymore. They were studying it frame by frame, line by line, searching for meaning in every shadow and pause. And then came the realization that unsettled everyone. Cranium wasn't designed to comfort its audience. It was designed to challenge them. The more episodes people watched, the clearer it became that this story was not about solving a mystery as quickly as possible. It was about sitting inside discomfort, about confronting how easily truth can be buried when power, fear, and ambition collide. That theme hit especially hard because of where Freen and Becky stood in 2026, two women who had fought to take control of their careers in an industry that rarely allows it. Viewers began to draw parallels, not publicly at first, but quietly, in private group chats and long comment threads that stretched for hours. People talked about how the forensic lab in Cranium felt less like a workplace and more like a system, one that protected certain figures while silencing others. And suddenly, the performances felt even heavier. Freen's character wasn't cold. She was tired. Tired of pretending the rules were fair. Becky's character wasn't emotional. She was awake, aware of the cost of telling the truth and choosing to speak anyway. Together, they embodied two sides of the same fight, and audiences felt that tension in their bones. By the third episode, a single scene began trending worldwide. No action, no dramatic reveal, just silence between the two characters as they stared at evidence neither of them wanted to acknowledge. That silence became iconic. Fans clipped it, slowed it down, turned it into edits with no music, no captions, just breathing. Industry insiders noticed too. Whispers started circulating that Cranium was already being discussed for international awards, not because of ratings alone, but because of its restraint, because it trusted its audience to think, because it refused to explain itself in simple terms. and because Freen and Becky had delivered performances that felt uncomfortably real. Still, the two remained silent. No live streams, no commentary threads, no emotional thank you posts. That absence only deepened the impact. It felt like they were letting the work speak, even if it meant losing control of the narrative for once. Then, 48 hours after the premiere, something unexpected happened. A short message appeared, posted simultaneously on both of their accounts. No theories, no shortcuts. Watch until the end. That was it. No emojis, no hashtags, no promotion. The message landed like a challenge. Fans understood immediately. Cranium wasn't built for instant gratification. It was a slow burn that demanded patience, and those willing to give it were being rewarded with something rare, storytelling that respected their intelligence. As the week unfolded, viewership numbers continued to climb steadily, not explosively. People recommended the series the way they would recommend a book that changed them. Quietly, seriously, with warnings like, "You have to be ready for this." And through all the noise, one truth became impossible to ignore. Cranium had shifted the Freen Becky narrative forever. They were no longer just a beloved duo or a powerful brand. They were artists who had taken a risk and won. Not by pleasing everyone, but by refusing to dilute what they wanted to say. As more episodes dropped and the mystery deepened, fans began asking a different question. Not what happens next, but what does this say about us for watching? And in that question, Cranium found its power. Because the scariest part of the story was no longer the crime. It was the truth waiting underneath it, and whether anyone was brave enough to face it.